Welcome, scholars of pagan and witch anthropology. In this video, we are going to discover the ancient immortals of the Spring Equinox. So, welcome to Whispering Wilds, and I'm Carissa Blackwood. This is an anthropology video, which is heavy on the information. It's lots of learning and exciting and cool stuff. And usually in my videos, I'm very relaxed and calm, but I really wanted to bring some extra energy to this very historical and informative topic. So thank you for joining me. We are looking at the deities of the spring equinox. The spring equinox, or the vernal equinox, is when there are equal lengths of day and night on Earth. So the rotation of the Earth on its axis and its position around the sun is at a point in time where there is literally equal hours of daylight and night. And then every day after that, there will be more hours of daylight until we reach summer, or the summer solstice, which will be the longest day. So let's keep it focused on spring and this new beginning of this very bountiful and plentiful season. I'm very excited to talk about these powerful beings, and if you have any of your own thoughts, deities that you like, questions, stuff that came up in your own research, please share them in the comments. And please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share the channel with any friends or family who you think would also like it. Alright, let's get into learning about these deities. Some of the themes associated with spring are maybe well known to you, so like fertility, new life, new growth, but then there's also the theme of balance, death, and death connected to resurrection, and feathers, birds. I was not aware of this, but as I was researching the different deities, I saw that there was a lot of mention of birds and feathers. So I would love to hear your interpretation of that. I'm thinking maybe it's connected to the sky, and in a lot of cultures, the sky god is like the god of creation, and that has to do with new life and the creative energy of spring. But I would love to hear your thoughts. All right, so the first deity, we are going in chronological order, is Osiris, the king. Osiris, the great Bambino. He is the god of the Egyptians, and he is considered to be the creator of civilizations. He taught his people how to grow corn and all that other stuff. Not corn, they didn't have corn. And he is the Egyptian god of the dead, the afterlife, of resurrection and life. And he was worshipped from 6000 BC all the way until 30 BC. And his story is one of passion and love. He was actually murdered in cold blood by his brother and resurrected by his lover and sister, Isis. Her love for him resurrected him and made him to be the god of the afterlife. So he is celebrated with these fertility rites on days of planting. So he is the god of agriculture, bringing in that new life through the plants and vegetation that are grown and that sense of fertility. He is also credited to being the creator of civilizations because he taught his people the ways of agriculture. This brings us to our next deity, who is also Egyptian, and she is the goddess Mayet. She is the goddess of creation and trust, balance, justice, and I think that she can be related to spring because she represents balance. And at springtime, we're having a balance of darkness, so that dark, death, and cold of winter is being balanced by the return of the sun. So Mayet can symbolize that balance of the spring equinox, equal lengths of day and night. She is also represented by a feather and is seen as the symbol of a bird, which we will see is a common theme in a lot of these deities. Our next deity is the goddess Asase Yaa. She is an African goddess and an earth goddess. She is worshipped by the people of Ghana. and what she represents is the return of new life, and her husband, the sky god, will send rains down from the heavens at the start of spring, and then Asase Yaa is the earth goddess that will bring to life the new crops, new growth, vegetation, and she is the goddess of agriculture. So she is honored on Thursdays by her followers, where Thursday is a day of rest. Asase Yaa is actually the goddess that helps people through their journey of death. So as people die, she is there to help them move on to the spirit world, which is very interesting because we see a connection between her and Osiris, Osiris being the god of the afterlife and resurrection and the god of agriculture, and Asase Yaa is the goddess of helping the dead move on to the spirit world and also the goddess of agriculture. So we're starting to see some themes here with our spring deities. Our next lady deity is the goddess Cybele. And Cybele is a Greco-Roman goddess that was really celebrated around the 6th century, and her following started in the region of Turkey and moved into Rome. She doesn't necessarily have a ton of lore about how she represents spring, but we do know that there were celebrations in her honor during spring, traditionally in Rome. And what is interesting about Cybele is that she has this story that is similar to the resurrection story of Jesus Christ. And what happened was this. Cybele was known to be full of jealousy and full of anger, and her young lover was driven mad by this crazy tendencies that she had. So he castrated himself and killed himself. But he was resurrected by divine intervention and brought back to life. So there's this resurrection story, although brutal, it's a resurrection story. And Cybele was celebrated for 3 days. So it kind of reminds me of the resurrection story of Jesus, where it takes him 3 days to come back to life. And I think that just kind of ties into the theme of spring being about death and resurrection. Interestingly, Cybele was very loved by Augustus Caesar, and he actually erected a statue in her honor, and the face of that statue was actually the face of his wife. So, pretty interesting. Saraswati is the beautiful and luscious and voluptuous goddess of the Hindu people. She is widely celebrated in West and Central India even to this day, and she's celebrated by Buddhists. What we see about her is that she represents spring. She might not be directly tied to the spring equinox, but she is a goddess that is celebrated during the springtime. She is the goddess of the creator, someone who brings life, and is represented by the swan, a bird, which is also a similar theme that we will see in other deities, that they are represented by feathers and birds. So she really represents education, new knowledge, creativity, and joy. She is a very powerful goddess. She forms a trinity of the mother, maiden, and crone, and that makes her a very regenerative goddess who brings that healing magic to the world. The next fair maiden goddess that we have the pleasure of talking about is Eostre, or Ostara, which is where we get the name for the vernal equinox of Ostara. And we'll get more into that in a second. So she was discovered and her information was recorded by the scholar named Bede, and he was a scholar in the 8th century. So around that time in the 8th century when he was studying her, he recorded that her following was actually dying out and her celebrations were being replaced by the celebrations of Jesus's resurrection. So we kind of see that there wasn't a lot of information recorded about her, but we did get some information about the transition of the assimilation of Christianity and kind of like taking over her following. But we do see that her name, Eostre or Ostara, is where we get the name for the spring equinox and the name for the Christian holiday of Easter, which is pretty cool. And we know that she represents the new dawn, she represents balance and the beginning of new life. Last but not least is the powerful Nordic goddess Freya. Freya still has quite a big following today, and like Eostre or Ostara, she did not have a lot of scholarly information and historical text about her, but what scholars have been able to tell is that her following dated back to around the 1st century AD, like similar deities in her era. Freya is the goddess of love, sex, fertility, war, gold, and sight, which is the ability to have future sight. Like other goddesses and gods of spring, she helps people who have died move on to the spirit world. So in her lore, she helped the fallen from battle move on to her heavenly planes, while Odin, her husband, was helping the other people who died move on to his spiritual plane of Valhalla. Freya is a goddess who is commonly incorporated into rites and rituals that aid in fertility and childbirth. She is also known to be seen in the form of a bird, which is a theme that we've seen occur in other deities around springtime. And as such, she also was given a gift of a cloak of hawk feathers. And when she puts on that magical cloak, she's able to transform into other creatures. So there's some type of magical power associated with feathers that is a common theme that I would love to know more about. So if you know about it, please share it in the comments. So Freya was the last deity that we were going to cover in this video. Again, if you have any deities in mind that you know about and like to celebrate during spring, please share them in the comments so we can learn about them as a community. I would love to know. And thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share the channel with friends, and I hope to see you in the next video. All right, I hope you have a wonderful spring, and thank you for watching. Blessed be.